Hi there, welcome to another episode of Adventures of the Awakening Heart. In this podcast, we talk about all forms of the heart, but today we're most definitely focusing on the spiritual heart, the heart that allows us direct contact with the universal spirit or source. My guest for this conversation is Patricia Wagner, who reached out to me recently after hearing me give a talk on the heart. She felt our ideas were very aligned, and when I learnt about the messages from Source that she has received during several profound spiritual experiences, messages that she's now sharing as far and wide as she can, I realised that indeed her ideas, her messages resonate very much with my own thoughts and beliefs. So, a very warm welcome to you, Patricia.
Oh, thank you so much, Liz, for inviting me. It's a pleasure to be here.
And it's a great pleasure to have you. So, just before we go on, I want to read you a bit more of a formal biography for Patricia. Just to give you a bit of a background on her and a bit of an understanding of where she's come from and the work she's doing now. So, Patricia Wagner is a new thought minister and teacher, energy healer, and spiritual evolutionary who left corporate America in 1998 to more fully align her career with her spiritual beliefs. In 2000, she opened Grace Unlimited, originally an energy healing practice that has evolved into her online ministry. She has a website, I'll just mention, in the pipeline for Grace Unlimited, and that should be ready next month. That will be, for those who are watching later, that will be May 2026. Anyway, we'll talk more about that later. So, as a meditator since 1977, Patricia has received a number of divine downloads from Spirit, three of which are meant to assist humanity in awakening. These are the Two Doors vision received in 1999, the Looking for Light vision received in 2001, and the Christ Chalice vision received in 2015. In 2025, Patricia synthesized the essence of these three revelations into a simple, coherence building, heart opening practice called the Divine Two Step. In 2019, Patricia presented a TEDx talk called Living in Heart-Centered Gratitude. And a little later, she founded a private Facebook group with the same name. This is now a very vibrant group where members freely share their own insights and gifts. And we will, for sure, share the details of that Facebook group, and we'll give all the details of your new website under this video. So, Patricia, from all of that, I think everyone will be able to tell this is going to be a fascinating, a very rich conversation. I'm really looking forward to it. And once again, thank you for being with me today.
Thank you so much for that introduction.
That's okay. So I wanted to begin. We're obviously going to get into real details about the visions you've had. But before that, I wanted to get a bit of sense of your background and what drew you into the world of spirituality. You said you were in corporate America before that. So what was your early career? What were you doing before all of this?
Well, if I can take it even further back, as
Yes,
a
sure.
child, I had out-of-body experiences when I slept, and I thought that was normal. I thought everybody did that. I mean, I was very young. And then at the age of 5, after watching the first broadcast on television of Peter Pan with Mary Martin, that was way before your time, Liz. But it was on television, and I was watching it with my sister, who was 2 years older. I was glued to it and thinking, oh my gosh, you can fly in the daytime too. And so after the show was over, I turned to my sister and I said, well, when we go flying at night, and she interrupted me and said, what are you talking about? You can't do that. No one can. And do you know that shut it down? That shut it down until I was in my 30s and had begun already meditating and diving into metaphysical material. And I realized, oh, yes, it is possible. So I had two more out-of-body experiences in my 30s. But career-wise, my career seemed to be actually, I was kind of a serial wife. I was married multiple times. I was raised Catholic, attended parochial schools, both grade school and high school. And on the first week of my senior year in high school, I was married because I was pregnant. And that marriage lasted 11 and a half years. It produced three beautiful children who are quite older now. And and then I went on to marry again and um and then I spent 12 years just diving into spiritual studies, personal and spiritual growth. That was so meaningful. Well, that began at the age of 38. So I was just a young woman. And
Mm.
as far as careers, I began working, first as an assistant bookkeeper and then secretary and so on. And then I became a real estate broker. And then I got these credentials in terms of, I became a CCIM and a CPM, certified property manager, and all these different accreditations to be a broker and be able to fill a real estate career and moved up the ladder rather rapidly. My last job was as the director with the Tampa Downtown Partnership, which is a nonprofit that is its purpose is to redevelop downtown Tampa. It was an inaugural position. It was a dream come true job. It was just amazing what was accomplished in the 4 years that I was there. But in 1998, I left um, to really align as you said, in my introduction, that align my career with my spiritual beliefs, and have been
Mm.
developing that since then.
Makes sense. And you are a minister with a New Thought movement. I wanted to just find out a bit more. I know a little bit, but I've done a bit of research before this interview, and it's been fascinating to find out a bit more about this movement. And actually, I'm going to just read some of the key principles of the New Thought movement that I've discovered, and then we can talk a bit about them because they really align with my ideas on spirituality. So one of the key principles, as I understand, is that God is not viewed as a literal person in New Thought, but more as unconditional love. And there seems to be an openness to all sort of backgrounds and maybe religious upbringings. Doesn't seem to be any dogma in New Thought, which is rather wonderful. So that was one of the key principles I found. Another is that um, we all have an inner divinity. There's a divine spark within all of us, that God is all there is and God is everywhere. Which really resonates with me as well. And then another one which links to this is the idea of oneness and interconnectedness. That we all have that divine spark, and we're all connected to one another. So all of that made a lot of sense to me. Maybe you can say a little bit more about the New Thought movement and how you came to train as a minister with them.
Uh, yes, and I agree with you that New Thought aligns very much with Theosophy, which I know
Mm.
is your primary spiritual um, background. And
Yes.
so, yes, I began meditating in 1977, and I did it for personal reasons. I had a very anxious mind. That was when my first marriage was falling apart, and I was worried all the time. And so I began taught myself how to meditate and still my mind. What I didn't realize was what would happen once we still our mind. It gives us an ability to receive from the divine, these what I call divine downloads. And so that's when you'd find me in every bookstore, the private bookstores, looking in the metaphysical sections and exploring spirituality on my own for 15 years, including theosophy, including esoteric teachings, including what I didn't even know was a name, New Thought. I did, at that point, but for 15 years, I did that on my own. It was sort of an unguided spiritual search. And then in 1993, actually someone I was dating, I was single at the time, said, "You know what? There's a church that believes everything you believe." And I said, "You're kidding. What is it?" And he said, "It's called Unity." Well, that's one of the denominations in New Thought. And so lo and behold, there was a Unity church less than 10 minutes away from where I lived. So I went there and the next Sunday, and, like so many people say who arrive in New Thought, I felt like I was home. And that's exactly how I felt. And so in 1998, 5 years later, I began taking courses for credit through their whole spiritual curriculum. Spent 17 years and my own time. I took my sweet time because it's a process, and I wanted to integrate it. I wanted to fully, plus I was doing self-study on my own with other branches of other things and books and teachers and so on, and became a licensed Unity teacher. And then a few years later became a divine science minister. Also, there's Centers for Spiritual Living, which originally was named Religious Science with Ernest Holmes. And then presently, probably the most well-known New Thought teacher right now is Reverend Michael Beckwith of Agape. So it's just a broad, I like to not even think of it as a religion. I think of it as a philosophy, and that's how they all were created. I know in Unity, Charles and Myrtle Fillmore, the founders, they absolutely supported people maintaining their own religions, whatever that was, and then just filling it with this philosophy of unity, of new thought. And the same is true for the others as well. So it's to me a spiritual philosophy. Today, I am just absolutely blown away with finding John Randolph Price books. He was a New Thought author that isn't as well known as most, and yet he did phenomenal works. I've been offering book studies by John Randolph Price now for several years and offering his world healing meditation that began back in 1986 on New Year's Eve, December 31st at noon Greenwich time to create a global mind link of saying this visionary prayer called the World Healing Meditation. And it's free. You can locate it on the website johnrandolphprice.com. John's no longer with us. He passed away about a decade ago, but all his work is his that meditation is there, and also one of his books, one that I did a study on last fall, and we'll repeat it this fall, called The Planetary Commission. The ebook is free right on that website, johnrandolphprice.com.
I'll make sure we put that link up because I hadn't heard of him. You've mentioned him to me, and I haven't had the chance yet to check out his work or that book, but I definitely will. Um, so the New Thought movement was established originally in America, is that right?
In the 1800s, yes.
Yeah. And is it quite a big movement in America? I mean, is
It's
it
it's
quite well
surprising
established?
to me how few people really know about New Thought.
Right.
And yet, it has some of the greatest influence. You see the influence it's having throughout mainstream, and hopefully within all the world religions. I just acquired books by John Templeton, and one of the books he wrote shortly before he passed away was a comparison of the new thought of of the world religions. And in it, I'm just still reading it, but it's quite the book. I think his philosophy, he quotes, like Charles Fillmore and Ernest Holmes and people who are in New Thought. So he
Mm,
absolutely comes from a New Thought philosophy in
mm,
the profound work that John Templeton has done and his foundation continues to do.
mm. And do you have a sense that it's a growing movement at this
I
time?
do. It maybe not a movement as much as a philosophy that's
Mm,
interweaving throughout all the world religions and throughout
mm,
humanity. And that's, to me, that's the primary goal, is that create this lens, this visual
mm,
lens and understanding and heartfelt knowing of
mm,
a truth with a capital T of what New Thought really promotes, the nature
mm,
of God as omnipotence, omnipresence, omniscience. And we see
mm,
that. I see that in the three messages that Spirit um, revealed over the last quarter century that I feel are meant to greatly assist humanity in awakening.
mm, mm. I mean, I've talked about some of the key principles. Is there um, anything else you'd add? So what I said was God is everywhere, including within us, um, and that we're all interconnected. And one of the things I think that's also key with the New Thought movement is this idea that if the divine lives within us, then we have the power within us to create our reality. Um,
Yes,
so,
absolutely.
yeah.
Yes. Yes, in fact, we have the divine qualities.
Mm,
In New Thought, it's more than a spark of divinity that we
mm,
really recognize that we are divinely created,
mm,
in the image and likeness. And if we're created, that is our divine inheritance to
mm,
develop those qualities. And I believe that's what our earth experience here is all about, is developing those qualities of the divine, where
mm,
we really hone our seeing the
mm,
omnipresence of spirit in all, in everyone, in ourselves first, in others as well, in all of life, in nature, in the formed and the unformed. And that
mm,
third revelation that Spirit brought, the Christ chalice, that we'll talk about a little bit later,
mm,
that is how we can understand how our mind was really created and what our function here is to do. So,
mm.
in our capacity.
So we're really going into the visions you received. So I want to let's go there now because we'll discover more about these ideas as you talk through those. I know you've got some slides to share. Do you want to share those now, or do you want to start by chatting and then we go on to those?
Well, I think we can start the slides and
Okay.
I can kind of narrate through that. And
Yeah,
please feel free to ask any questions as
I
we go
will.
along.
Yes.
Okay.
You
All
go
right.
ahead and share.
Okay. All right. So this was the first vision that appeared in 1999. It came after attending a week-long sacred silence retreat at Unity Village. And I can tell you that when I arrived at that sacred silence retreat, I was at the very lowest place I'd ever been in my life or since. Thank God, thank God. It was just, I was despondent. And through that week, I just surrendered to spirit. And with spiritual practices like meditating several times a day and reading spiritual studies and incorporating the programs that they presented during that sacred silence retreat, including 3 days of complete silence, which I loved. Um, by the seventh day, I was feeling nothing but gratitude and joy. And
Mm,
so I went home, and because I was self-employed, right? I had quit my corporate job the year before. Because I was self-employed, I was able to continue those spiritual practices every day at home. And I never wanted that dark night of the soul to appear again. So, so So I did that, and it was weeks later that all of a sudden, on a very normal afternoon, this two doors vision appeared. And I didn't, I wrote, fortunately, because I was in the habit of journaling during my retreat, I wrote down exactly what I experienced during that vision. But I have to tell you, I really didn't have the consciousness back then to be able to realize the profoundness of what this two doors vision revealed. It was 19 years later when I was getting ready to do a talk at a women's expo in Ocala, where I live, that I was already planning another talk. When 10 days out, I heard this message from Spirit, talk about the two doors vision. Well, I had to prove that to myself first. But this is what I realized when I took a really close look at what this two doors vision revealed. First, it revealed our purpose in life, a realization of oneness with God. And of course, what that means is a realization of oneness with God, with each other, with all of life. The second, it revealed that we have choices in how we awaken, consciously through gratitude or unconsciously learning lessons through the challenges of life. And that's probably what the majority of us have been doing most of our lives until we learn how to live in gratitude. And then the third thing it revealed is no matter which path we choose to awaken, the ultimate destination is heaven on earth. And I totally believe that. That is the divine plan, that is our destination, and we are the ones who will manifest that. So um, that vision came in 1999, and
Just
on
before you move
questions.
on, so I just wanted to just ask you a bit more detail. So you actually saw two doors in this vision, did you? And
Exactly what this shows
image
is what
shows.
this, it just totally enveloped me. That's what I could
Mm.
only see
Mm.
was this, and this is what I wrote, and there was an awareness that the purpose of every life experience, every thought, every relationship, every circumstance, every moment on this earth is for realizing our oneness with God. I saw two doors floating freely above a scene whose beauty could only be described as heaven on earth. On one door were written the words, Dark Night of the Soul, and on the other door was written the word, Gratitude. There was a knowing that I can consciously choose the door of gratitude to become aware of oneness, or life would choose the other door for me to create that same awareness. Through either door, consciously or unconsciously, life will lead us to oneness and ultimately to creating heaven on earth. And I'm so grateful I wrote it down because I would not have remembered it later. So.
Yeah, I'm so grateful you wrote it down. So really what you're saying is that we're all ultimately going to end up in the same place. We're
Oh,
all
absolutely.
we're
Yes.
all on a journey. All of us souls are evolving, going in the same direction to the same destination of oneness.
Different
Um,
routes, but
but
we're all on the same
they're
path for the same destination.
the same
Yes.
destination, and we have two main ways we can reach that place. One is through learning by experiencing challenges and difficulties and dark night of the soul, like you say. And that can be and is an incredibly powerful way for people to grow and transform themselves. So it works, but it's difficult, it's tough. Um, or this other way, which you'll talk more about, but it's through gratitude simply. It's
It's through the
through,
heart, Liz. It's through the
yeah,
heart and
absolutely.
gratitude. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So I actually, when I finally got this, 19 years later in 2018, I had to prove it to myself. And so I said to myself, I'm going to start living, anchoring to the feeling of gratitude in my heart. I knew I could do that
Mm.
because, because that's how. I anchored to my heart whenever I had to do something that frightened me, like give a public talk. And so I knew I could do that. That's what I did. And I said to myself, no matter what, that's my number one priority. And sure enough, after I made that commitment to myself, which was 7 days out from that Women's Expo talk, the next day I wrote an email to someone and got back a response that immediately triggered me. And I went, ah! Oh, and I was angry about the response that I received because I thought it was unfair. And then I remembered, oh, Patricia, you promised yourself to anchor to the feeling of gratitude in your heart no matter what. And so I went back into my heart. I anchored into gratitude. I put all that aside to not respond to that email until I could do so from a place of heart-centered gratitude. And that's what I did. And wouldn't you know, a couple of days later in my morning meditation, the exact words of how to reply to that email came to me. Now, I wasn't thinking about that email. I was my mind was still, I was in meditation. But as soon as the meditation was over, I went to my computer, I typed out the words that had been given to me to reply, and I sent the email along my way, along its way. And I vowed to myself that no matter what response came back, I was maintaining uh, my I was anchoring to gratitude in my heart because it felt so wonderful. And anyone that does this, they will prove to themselves the life-changing effects that it has, the benefits that it has. It's just amazing. And so the very next day, which was the day before the talk I had to give on Sunday, she emailed back and said that she was going to be refunding my entire amount that I had paid into this program, which was that's not what I had asked for. I had asked for only 50%, but she, because I wasn't receiving what had been promised. Anyway, she refunded the whole thing. And I thought to myself, wow. Wow. I mean, this energy that we emanate and staying in gratitude, it actually opens our hearts. You find yourself opening when you begin living in heart-centered gratitude. You find yourself, you're feeling so relaxed and the heart opens and it comes into love, it comes into joy, it comes into peace, and it comes into a desire for unity, for harmony, a desire to give, to be a generous giver. It transforms. And just like Spirit revealed in this Two Doors vision, that we can create heaven on earth by living in heart-centered gratitude.
Mm. It sounds so simple, and it is so simple, and yet to when we're feeling triggered and feeling angry, to actually bring ourselves into that place of gratitude and love can be really difficult. How have you managed to do that and continue to do that?
By making that commitment. And first by experiencing the benefits of it.
Yes.
So, I would say that the best way to start is like I did before I was triggered. I made that commitment. And then when I got triggered, I remembered the commitment and went back, brought my focus and my breathing back into my heart and began just anchoring to the feeling of gratitude there. And, it was later in years that I learned heart math. I know you are heart math trained as well. And, but even just anchoring to the feeling of gratitude in our hearts, it begins a process of feeling as if you're breathing in and out through your heart, which is what Heart Math Institute, I just love that organization, has
Mm.
so beautifully proven scientifically for decades the biological, mental, emotional, physical, spiritual benefits of just heart-focused breathing. And so adding of an emotion like gratitude and appreciation, or love or caring, compassion, while we're doing this, while we're anchored in our hearts, um, is just, it magnifies the coherence individually of our heart and our mind. And the energy field that it creates is just magnetically, actually, and synergizing with the global field as well. We'll talk about
Mm.
more with the later ones.
You're right. I mean, Heart Math Institute have shown quite clearly with lots of their research that when we regulate and deepen our breathing and bring in the emotions, the positive emotions, that yes, that changes the power of the energetic field of our hearts. So it's something real that can be measured.
Yes.
Just going back to what you said before, I think you're right in terms of how does someone maintain this practice or even begin on this path and then maintain it. And I think what you said is once you start living like this and practicing this, you see the benefits. And that's the biggest motivator of all, isn't it? In terms of what then starts to unfold in your life.
Most assuredly. Yes. It's a
Mm.
prove it to yourself.
Yes, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
So take us on to the next vision then. This was in 1999. Like you say, it wasn't until a couple of decades later that it really struck you what it truly meant. But what was the next vision you had?
So the next vision came actually 2 years later. By
Mm-hmm.
then, I had married my current husband, Dave. We had met back in 1996, and we were both in A Course in Miracles and other New Thought teachings and so on. But we were married on December 31st, uh, 2020. So just by the way, we celebrated our 25th wedding anniversary last New Year's Eve, which is quite an accomplishment for both of us because we've both been married multiple times before. But that's just an aside. So I was, like 5 months in this new marriage, and it was like a dream come true. And so I meditate every morning, and after one of my meditations one morning in May, um, I silently asked Spirit, how can I stay consciously connected with God outside of meditation? And instantly, light started appearing everywhere. It just was flashing everywhere. And I knew it was spirit in answer to that question. And I knew I could re-envision this. I could use light as it appeared as spirit. And so I later that day, I used it as a game. And I named it Looking for Light. It's a mindfulness game in which we keep our minds searching only for light as spirit and good and God in every situation and circumstance. Well, let me tell you, that afternoon, as I was running errands in St. Petersburg, where we lived, I I use, if you're looking for light, you see it everywhere. It just pops out at you. If you're not looking for it, it's everywhere, but you don't see it. And so, using this little mindfulness game with light as spirit, it just absolutely embeds in your subconscious the awareness of omnipresence, God everywhere present. And it fills your heart with gratitude and joy. By the time I got home that afternoon, after running these errands, my whole energy field was uplifted in this vibrancy of gratitude and joy. It was the most exhilarating feeling. And so years later, I developed the website lookingforlight.net, which includes, I wanted to validate it with quotes by mystics and sages, philosophers, um, that that understood that what we see, as we see, we are creating more of. And so if we see light and good in God only, truth only, what we become is co-creators of heaven on earth. We are then co-creating more good on the planet, more of the divine on the planet. So I think that's what this mindfulness game that Spirit gave us is all about. And I needed it more than anything because I just needed to, to it. This is what actually probably unconditioned me from old conditioned limiting beliefs and awarenesses and judgment and things like that. It conditioned me into keeping my mind steadied on the divine, on seeing God everywhere, in everyone, in everything. And it was powerful. It's a fun game. It absolutely uplifts your whole field. And you again prove it to yourself how we can create our own life. We are co-creators with the divine.
Mm. Yeah, like you say, what we focus on is what expands in our life. So it's very similar to the gratitude, I guess. It's just looking as we go about our day for the things that are beautiful and that bring us joy, and just keeping our attention focused on those things, rather than what it's so easy to get into is seeing all the things that are negative out there, and ruminating on the problems that are in our world, and discussing them and complaining about them. It's so easy to do that, and there is, if you're looking for the negative, there's quite a lot to be found, but it's just really shifting focus away from that onto all the beauty that there is, because there's an abundance of that, and that grows in our reality the more we focus on it.
It redefines the lens through which we see things. It absolutely changes our whole attitude, our whole perspective, our whole perception. And so it changes our lives. Yeah, yeah.
Amazing. So
And so
now
I consider looking for light is feeding us omnipresence, whereas the Two Doors vision was omnipotence, the power through the heart. The heart is the most powerful, as you know, and you teach. So so there we have omnipotence, omnipresence, and then the next one is omniscience.
mm, so take us on to the next one, which was
Okay.
over a decade later, wasn't it?
Yes, it was in 2015, and
Mm,
I needed to grow in consciousness enough to be able to absorb this one. So
yeah.
this came in 2015, right? It was shortly after I had graduated as a licensed Unity teacher, after those 17 years of a curriculum of study. And I was getting ready to teach a class, and the subject was God mind. So couple of days before the class, it was on a Sunday, and Dave and I were sitting in the sanctuary waiting for the service to begin, and I silently asked Spirit, "How do I explain God mind?" And all of a sudden, this conceptualization just downloaded. And because of all those years of study, I knew exactly what each component on this graphic
Mm,
meant.
mm,
It defined the superconscious mind, the subconscious mind, and the conscious mind as our three phases of mind. And how, when our superconscious is activated, it's an open reservoir. It's a still mind that is open, receptive, and in resonance with God mind, like in meditation or prayer or in nature or whatever means we use to maintain that presence and awareness. And so that's an activated superconscious, which then allows divine ideas, inspirations, revelations, insights to flow freely from infinite intelligence, God mind, into our superconscious mind, which then those divine ideas embed into our subconscious, which is that reflector plate to the conscious mind, that whose job then the conscious mind is to bring it out into the relative world, both the physical relative world of space and time and form, and the non-physical relative world of race consciousness. And so this we are born fully, all of us. There's no exceptions here. This is how human beings are born, with these three phases of mind that carry the potential and the purpose of live streaming from God mind these insights and revelations into and out into our earthly experience. The problem is, science has yet to really prove the superconscious. Now, they've proven the subconscious and the conscious, but not yet the superconscious. But that's coming. I know it's coming because humanity's waking up. And so what people have been doing on Earth for eons is using their five senses that looks at the appearances on Earth of separation and duality, and then that concept, those ideas are embedded in the subconscious that brings those beliefs into the conscious, that goes out into the world and affirms, oh, yes, we're separate. Everything's part. There's good and bad and right and wrong and light and dark and all these duality ways of thinking that then again re-impress the subconscious and creates this feedback loop of subconscious, conscious, five senses, and it goes on, increasing the polarity here on Earth, which is what we've been seeing, especially as time goes on. But we can reverse that because we're built to reverse it. We're built to create heaven on earth. We're built to create a heavenly experience here on this earth. And as we do, we wake up to our Christ nature. That's one of the beliefs in New Thought is it's more than an essence of the divine, that we are each have the capacity of the Christ consciousness within each of us, but it takes that development. Well, this Christ chalice conceptualization download gave us the how. How is it done? This is how it is done. And so the mind plays in here, and we already know the heart is so magnificent in bringing it about. But when we are in that aligned state of mind with the divine, our hearts are fully open and attuned to gratitude. It's just this coming together in coherence, and it emanates the most magnificent, high vibrational, powerful, magnetizing field. That's what we all can learn to do. This is what our purpose is here, to realize oneness, and that's what it realizes. Yeah.
So the way that we keep this spirit, this inspiration coming in through those, or downloading from superconscious, subconscious, conscious, how do we keep that flowing freely? How do we allow that inspiration to come in? Is it, like you're saying, just to keep on focusing and coming back to gratitude and seeing the good?
Yeah, I believe so. I believe the practices are simple that Spirit gave us. The two doors vision is about gratitude in the heart, and what it will do. It will awaken us to oneness. It will create heaven on earth. The looking for light practice, this is just one of the tools we can use, but it's a simple game. And we can use it anytime. But developing the understanding that the essence of everything is divine, that every bit of creation is divine, and the qualities of the nature of source is omnipotence, omnipresence, omniscience. And then having the understanding through this Christ chalice concept that we have three phases of mind, not just two, three, the superconscious, the subconscious, and the conscious, and that we are born fully equipped and essential for the creation of heaven on earth here. And it's essential for those three activations, which align it. it includes our intention and giving attention and the commitment, making that choice, and then cultivating it by doing these practices. These aren't the only two, anchoring to the feeling of gratitude and align and playing looking for light. Those are two practices, and those are the two that I put together in the Divine Two-Step, which we'll talk about. Yeah.
Mm. And really, we don't need to worry about how these things happen and the mechanics of it and the process and the ordering of things. That doesn't really need to concern us. It's interesting that you have this vision, and it's really powerful. uh, but we don't need to know that, really. We just need to focus, like you're saying, on those simple practices, and the rest takes care of itself, doesn't it? Because we're built for this.
We're built for this. Yes, that's it. We're built for this. And really, the only thing that we can control is ourselves.
Yeah.
We can control how we uh, live in the world, how we feel from the inside out. The world is created. And so when we have full self-empowered control over how we're feeling, what we're seeing, what our beliefs are, what we become manifestors, very powerful co-creators. Our life changes for the better. You prove to yourself, and then it just keeps growing and growing the more you stay committed to the practices and this realization, this awareness that it's all light, it's all good, it's all God. And I know, when I say that, there are some people that say, "What? That's a divine. That's what do they call it? A bypass or whatever." But it's
Spiritual
not.
background. Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
not. It's a conscious realization that the divine is everywhere, in and through all. And when we can use ourselves as a co-creator by believing, knowing that truth and seeing it and feeling it, regardless of appearances, then we are adding to the awakening of humanity and the blessing, becoming a blessing, a light unto this world. So
Mm.
it's our choice. It's all our
Mm.
choice.
Mm.
That's what this earthly spirit experience is about, is of
Yeah,
realizing that.
it
Yeah.
is a choice. We have free will. We can choose the hard way.
Yeah.
And like I said before, we'll all get to the same place. But as we come to understand this, I think many of us would like to choose the more joyful way.
And the easier way. I
And the
mean, who
easy
wouldn't
way.
want to choose gratitude rather
Yeah,
than hard lessons through the dark night
absolutely.
or
Yeah, yeah. So tell us now how this has all come together in the Divine Two-Step.
okay, so last year, it takes a little while, as you can see, to explain these three messages from Spirit and how they came about and what their meaning is and so on. And so I thought to myself, there's got to be an easier way, a simplified way,
Mm.
because, Spirit's trying to teach us something simple here. And so I thought about the Two Doors Vision and how that's all about the heart, the feelings in the heart of gratitude. And that's really the main message in that our whole world can change through heart-centered gratitude. And and then I thought about the next two revelations, looking for light and the Christ chalice. And that all is about spirit conveying to us where you focus your mind is so important. Focus it on the highest, focus it on the divine. And so I thought, well, why not do this divine two-step practice of aligning our minds with the divine all the time while anchoring to the feeling of gratitude in our hearts all day, every day. It's a practice, a simple practice, not necessarily easy at first, but it does take commitment. It takes choosing it, committing to it, and then cultivating it. And then I thought, but how does one put it together? Because I was really good at doing one and then the other, but not putting them together. And so then I thought, Well, how does one put it together? And it came to me, it's so simple. Because once you've been developing this practice of living in heart-centered gratitude, anchoring to the feeling of gratitude in your heart all day, every day, it becomes a way of life. That's been going on for years for me now, thank God. And so and so I thought, so how to put these two together? The easiest way I've come up with, and the most profound way, is by just relaxing into your grateful heart. Just go there. And as you begin breathing in and out through your heart and feeling the gratitude, all the blessings on this earth, in our lives, our purpose, our potential, just being so grateful for all the gifts of life, then still your mind in presence, right here in your heart. Become present with a still mind and awareness. And as you do that, oh my goodness, you begin to actually feel and see with inner eyes your own luminous self. Your whole energy field will become brighter, lighter, luminous, radiant, and you'll feel, you might feel, I've done it so much I don't feel it so much anymore because it's become natural, but when you begin, you'll feel an effervescence of energy within yourself because your body is acclimating to this higher vibrational field that you're creating through this divine two-step attunement. Divine two-step attunement, where you're bringing the two together, anchoring to the feeling of gratitude in your heart while aligning your mind with the divine by staying in presence. And just breathe it in and see yourself as this luminous being, this radiant light, and feel the goodness of it, the peace of it, the power of it, the love of it. And as you relish in it, you're embraced by it. Your field becomes stronger, brighter, lighter, more powerful, more radiant. You become a co-creator of heaven on earth. Heaven on earth begins within each one of us. And that's the practice of the divine step attunement.
Thank you for taking us through that. I guess because I'm thinking of many people do meditation and they maybe put 15 minutes, half an hour, even an hour aside every day, and they go into that place and maybe they really do feel connected and at peace in that moment. And the more we practice that, we can bring that with us through the day. But I think a lot of times people will do that and then go back to their everyday and slip in because it's very easy, as I said earlier, to seeing what they don't like out there. And there's a lot of it, or there can be if you focus on that. What you're saying, what's so important is we need to keep in that vibration as much as possible to really start to feel the power and to create this heavenly state. So I just wondered for you, you mentioned earlier you do have a meditation practice. Do you set time aside every day for that and then practice these other things like looking for the light throughout the rest of the day? Is that how it sort of fits for you?
Yes, Liz, you're absolutely right. It's a conditioning of us, you know. We have to condition. It's a process. It's a spiritual evolutionary process that we're doing. And so I have not only is my meditation practice first thing I do in the morning, but also I've actually set on my phone timer 4 times a day. For me, I set 7:55 a.m. and then 11:55 a.m. and then 4:55 p.m. and 10:55 p.m. to take 5 minutes of just doing this divine two-step attunement, just to condition my body, my heart, my mind into this beautiful, coherent state of energetic expansion of oneness. And as I do that, I'm more and more growing at that as my baseline, my natural state of being. And over time, I hope, and not only hope, I know that we can become Christ conscious, develop God consciousness, because that's what we are created to do and to be through this earthly experience. Yeah, but it's a conditioning process. And,
Mm,
I'm better off than when I first started, and I will continue to grow into this process
mm,
as my body, heart, mind, uh, all acclimates to this higher
mm,
vibration where it becomes a permanent state of being. And I think
mm,
that's what all the mystics, the sages, the saints, that's what in their own way and through their own practices, what they eventually became when they became enlightened and
mm,
Christed, you know?
mm, mm. Yeah, I mean, certainly the, the, the ideas resonate very much with a lot of what the mystics said. You know, they may say it slightly differently, but it comes down to the same thing. And this is very powerful for me because I have practiced similar sort of things, again, not quite the same words necessarily, and seen the power of it in my own life. But then something will trip me up and I'll get stuck back into that sort of everyday reality. And sometimes I find it's quite easy to see the light and to see the God in certain situations, but there are other things where it's really quite difficult. Those are the areas that, we need to spend a bit more time and focus and practice. So this has been a really lovely reminder for me to get back into some of these practices. So thank you for that. And I'm looking forward very much because you've got a course coming up uh, fairly soon actually, and I'm going to be joining that. And I'm really excited about that because it's going to, again, help me to really hone in on some of these practices. So do you want to tell us a bit about that course?
I do, I do. Let me go to the next slide. And well, first, if you don't mind, can I mention,
Okay. Yes.
yeah, the like in 2024, I asked AI what would be the outcome that they predict if 10% of humanity were to learn about these three messages from Spirit. And they said in 1 year, there would be enhanced well-being on the planet. In 5 years, a cultural transformation, and in 10 years, a global harmony. Then they said at the bottom of that report, when a significant portion of the population understands and practices these concepts, it can lead to a collective shift in consciousness, which is all the work that you and I and so many others are doing, is to raise the consciousness on the planet. And then last year, I asked, what about the divine two-step? What would happen if 10% of humanity were to cultivate the divine two-step? They said in 1 year, seeds of transformation would sprout around the globe. That in 5 years, there'd be a cultural renaissance of gratitude and an aligned mind. And that in 10 years, there'd be an emergence of a new paradigm because humanity would realize that they are divine beings, not only human, but divine as well. And then it went on to say, what inspired your vision of the divine two-step? Well, they didn't know about the three revelations. And then it says, because I've got to say, it's got the makings of a movement. So that's what we're trying to do is to awaken everyone to these revelations from Spirit, the power of them, and the divine two-step practice um, as one of the tools to create heaven on earth. I believe we all can join in a heaven on earth movement.
How interesting that you decided to ask AI. And, it as many people say, it only takes a certain, fairly small proportion of the world's population to get on board with something like this, to tip the balance and to cause a paradigm shift, like you say. So yeah, fingers crossed that that will unfold. So yeah, tell us about the course then.
So the 8-week online coaching course that begins on June 9th and runs for 8 weeks to July 28th will be on Tuesdays, and I'm offering it at two different times so that it can reach a global audience at noon and at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. It will go into depth about these three revelations from Spirit and the divine two-step and be supportive all the way by weekly Zoom calls. And that's the times of the Zoom calls on Tuesdays. So they will be given, information, videos and handouts, and then we'll meet every week to just reflect on those and discuss what came up for the week. So it will help people actually integrate these practices into their own life and then continue on after that. There's another thing I mentioned to you about John Randolph Price. Well, we're currently finishing up one of his books called Empowerment, which was so profound. The next book that we're doing is the Abundance book, and that begins on June 28th, and it runs for 7 weeks. And we'll meet on Sundays at 8 p.m. Eastern with that book.
Mm.
So um, it's powerful, and if anybody is interested on that, all of this information will eventually appear in May on the
On the
website
website.
graceunlimited.com, but it's doing a deep renovation. So,
Mm.
everyone could register once that website
Yeah.
is developed and find out more about it. And there will be a free download of the Heaven on Earth Manifesto, which I love. I love. I also like to mention that everyone, you can request to join a private Facebook group that was established back in 2021. It's very active. Liz is a member of our group, and it's called Living in Heart-Centered Gratitude, which was the name of my TEDx talk. So,
And maybe for those who want to really get on board now, and perhaps if they're looking at this before the website's ready, if they join the group, they'll get all the updates there, won't they? Of courses.
oh yes.
Yeah,
Thank
yeah,
you, Liz. Yes. And they'll probably get it first.
yeah. And it is a lovely group, so yeah, okay, I encourage people to do that. All the links I'll put below this video as well. Um, was there anything else you wanted? Did you have another slide? I think.
I have one more slide, but if yeah, I have one more slide. It's just a quote from uh Teilhard de Chardin.
Mm-hmm.
And let's see. I'm do you want to read it?
Do you want me to read it?
Yes, please.
Okay, well, why don't I, before I read it, let's just bring this beautiful conversation to a close. Patricia, this has been fascinating and really inspiring to me, and I'm sure to others as well. So I really want to thank you for your time today and for sharing this, which it's I know you feel it's now your life's mission to share this, and I can totally see why you feel that because it feels really profound and it feels really important, and particularly now. We do have a lot of trouble in the world, and as I keep saying, it's very easy to get drawn into that. And sometimes we feel like, well, we need to know what's going on out there in the world and we need to give it our attention. But actually, there is another way to live, and that's to give our attention to all the beauty in the world that gets missed very often. But it's there, and the more we put our attention on it, the more we'll see it and the more we'll create in our lives. And that helps us, but it also helps the whole of humanity. So this is such an important message. And I want to thank you again for your time today and for all the work you're doing in sharing this. So thank
Thank
you.
you. Thank you, Liz. Thank you so much. Thank you for this opportunity.
That's a pleasure. So I'll finish by reading this quote from The Phenomenon of Man. The outcome of the world, the gates of the future, the entry into the superhuman, these are not thrown open to a few of the privileged, nor to one chosen people to the exclusion of all others. They will open only to an advance of all together, in a direction in which all together can join and find completion in a spiritual renovation of the earth, a renovation whose physical degree of reality we must now consider and whose outline we must make clearer.
Mhm. Thank you
What a
so much,
lovely
Liz.
way
Thank
to
you.
finish. So
Thank
thank
you.
you again, Patricia, and thank you to all who have watched today. I'm sure you've been inspired like I have been, and please check out the links below if you want to know more. Thank you again, and we will connect again very soon. Bye for now.
Thank you, Liz.